Humanity had been part of the Asterian Alliance for only 12 years, which was apparently long enough for half the galaxy to decide humans were either heroic, reckless, or simply incapable of leaving mysterious objects alone. Captain Adrian Hale had heard all three opinions during his first week inside the Imperial Palace of Vareth. He considered the third one unfair. Mostly. His current assignment was Corridor 7, a narrow section of the palace connecting the royal chambers to several private observation rooms. Nothing important was supposed to happen there. That was exactly what his commanding officer had told him. Quiet duty, Commander Joras had promised. On Adrian's first morning, a maintenance drone attacked his boot. The machine was the size of a dinner plate, floated 20 centimeters above the floor, and possessed a rotating cleaning arm that seemed personally offended by shoelaces. Adrian moved his foot. The drone followed. He moved again. The drone accelerated. "You know," said the Varethi guard standing beside him, "it only behaves that way around you." "That's comforting." The drone rammed his ankle. Adrian stared down at it. "I have fought raiders with better manners." The guard's long ears twitched slightly, which Adrian had learned was the Varethi equivalent of trying not to laugh. The Varethi looked almost human. Their faces, hands, and bodies followed familiar proportions, but their long ears curved backward in elegant lines, and their eyes reflected light with a faint silver shimmer. Adrian had stopped staring after his first few days. Mostly. Queen Nythera was considerably harder not to notice. Even before Adrian had seen her in person, he had heard stories. Officers claimed she once ended a military rebellion by walking into the rebel command center without armor. Diplomats said she had negotiated a ceasefire while an enemy cruiser aimed its weapons directly at the palace. One particularly enthusiastic cook insisted Nythera could detect lies from 3 rooms away. Adrian suspected the cook had invented that story to stop soldiers stealing desserts. Still, the Queen's reputation was unquestioned. Nythera never hesitated, never lost control, never revealed fear, and according to servants who had worked in the palace for decades, nobody had ever seen her cry. Adrian first saw her crossing Corridor 7 beneath a moving ceiling of projected stars. She walked between 4 royal guards wearing dark ceremonial armor. Her silver-white hair fell behind her shoulders, and her long ears were decorated with small metallic rings that glowed whenever she passed a security field. She looked almost entirely human until those graceful ears caught the light. Her violet eyes briefly met Adrian's. He saluted. She gave the smallest nod. Then she was gone. That should have been the end of it. Instead, during the following days, the palace began changing. Military officers arrived at unusual hours. Encrypted courier spheres passed through corridors normally reserved for royalty. Scientists from the Imperial Stellar Institute entered the palace carrying black crystalline cases protected by armed escorts. Adrian noticed, because humans notice things they were repeatedly told were none of their business. One evening, he watched 3 admirals enter a secure elevator. None came back up. The next morning, Queen Nythera canceled every public appearance. By afternoon, 2 diplomatic ships had left the palace without their ambassadors. Something was wrong. Nobody explained what. The alien guards became quieter. Servants stopped gossiping. Even the kitchen staff stopped arguing over whether humans had ruined bread by inventing sandwiches. Adrian found that particularly disturbing. At midnight, he took position outside the Queen's private chambers. 4 Varethi royal guards stood with him. Nobody spoke. Beyond the transparent palace walls, Vareth's capital stretched beneath them, thousands of towers glowing against the darkness while orbital transport lanes formed golden lines across the sky. Adrian checked his pulse rifle. Long night, no answer. He looked toward the nearest guard. "You people really make conversation difficult." The guard stared forward. "That is intentional." "Good. I was worried I was losing my charm." Another guard's ear twitched. Adrian smiled. Then he heard something very faint. He turned toward the enormous silver door behind them. Nothing. A few seconds passed. Then it came again. A broken breath, a muffled sound, someone crying. Adrian frowned. He looked at the guards. Nobody moved. He listened again. There was no mistaking it now. The sound came from Queen Nythera's chamber. Adrian glanced at the oldest guard. "Is she? You heard nothing?" Adrian blinked. "I definitely heard something. The ventilation system. The ventilation system is crying." The guard's expression remained perfectly still. Advanced technology. Adrian almost laughed, but another quiet sob came through the door. This one was worse. Not loud, not theatrical. It was the sound of someone trying desperately not to make any sound at all. Adrian had heard that kind of crying before. Refugees inside evacuation ships. Soldiers after casualty reports. Parents sitting beside empty medical pods. Pain sounded strangely similar across every species. He looked at the 4 royal guards. They all stared forward. "You're seriously going to stand here?" One finally whispered. "Her Majesty closed the chamber. That means she wishes to remain alone. She sounds like she doesn't want to be alone. That is not our decision." Adrian looked back at the door. Another silence followed. Then a shaky breath. Something tightened inside his chest. Orders were simple. Guard the corridor. Do not disturb the Queen. Respect royal protocol. Adrian had followed worse orders in worse places. But he had never been particularly good at pretending not to see suffering or hear it. He stepped toward the door. Every Varethi guard immediately turned. The oldest one whispered sharply, "Human." Adrian stopped. "Yes." "What are you doing?" "Something extremely stupid. At least you understand. I usually do right before I do it." He approached the silver door. The guards looked horrified. Adrian raised his hand. For one brief second, he wondered how difficult it would be to explain to Earth Command that he had caused an interstellar diplomatic incident because he knocked on a door. Then he knocked. 3 quiet taps. The crying stopped instantly. The corridor became completely silent. Adrian could almost hear the guards reconsidering humanity's membership in the Alliance. Several seconds passed. Then Queen Nythera's voice came from behind the door. Quiet, controlled, but not completely steady. "Who is there?" Adrian swallowed. "Captain Adrian Hale, Your Majesty." Another silence. Then came the words nobody in that corridor expected. "Come in." Adrian had faced artillery fire with less hesitation than he felt while opening Queen Nythera's door. The chamber admitted him after a thin blue beam scanned his face, uniform, weapon, and probably every poor decision he had made since childhood. The silver panels slid apart without sound. He stepped inside. The door closed behind him. For one uncomfortable second, Adrian considered knocking again and pretending the first attempt had been an administrative error. Then he saw Nythera. She stood near a circular control table with both hands resting against its edge. The crown was gone. Her silver-white hair had fallen partly across her face, and the faint glow from a rotating star map reflected across her long ears. She had already wiped away the tears, almost. One still remained beneath her left eye. Nythera turned toward him. "You knocked." Adrian straightened. "Yes, Your Majesty. You were told not to." "Yes, Your Majesty. And yet you knocked." "That appears to be the sequence of events." Her eyes narrowed. Adrian immediately regretted the joke. Then, unexpectedly, one corner of her mouth moved. Not quite a smile. Close enough to prevent his execution, he hoped. "Why?" He glanced toward the door. "Because everyone outside heard you." Nythera's expression hardened. Adrian continued before courage escaped him, and everyone decided pretending they didn't was somehow respectful. "They obeyed protocol, I know, and you did not. I'm beginning to notice a theme." This time the faint smile definitely appeared, only for a second, then it vanished. Nythera turned toward the star map. Several systems glowed in green, others pulsed red. Adrian immediately recognized military emergency coding. Entire sectors had been marked. He stepped closer, careful not to touch anything. "What happened?" "That information is restricted." Of course, extremely restricted. Naturally, you are not authorized to know. Then I'll stare at the floor professionally. Nythera looked at him. You make jokes when nervous. Yes. Why? Because screaming makes people uncomfortable. A soft sound escaped her. It took Adrian a moment to realize the Queen had laughed. It disappeared almost immediately, but something in the room changed. Nythera looked back toward the projection. 6 hours ago, the star Hellion 12 became unstable. Adrian's humor vanished. I thought Hellion 12 was artificial. It is. He stared at her. Humanity had heard rumors about the Varethi stellar engineering program, but most officers assumed half of them were propaganda. You built a star. My ancestors did. Adrian slowly nodded. Right, of course. We built aircraft carriers. You built suns. Same general concept. Nythera ignored that. Hellion 12 is one of 9 artificial stars created during the founding era. They do more than provide light and heat. The projection changed. Curving streams appeared between systems like glowing threads. They stabilize gravitational corridors used by thousands of worlds. Adrian leaned closer. Hyperlanes. Not exactly. That means yes, but more complicated. It means no, but your species would call them hyperlanes. See. Progress. Nythera gave him another irritated glance, though it lacked real anger. Then she touched one of the red systems. The hologram expanded. Planets rotated around a dimming star. Hellion 12 is failing. Adrian studied the orbital data. How long? 11 months. That doesn't sound immediate. It is. More systems turned red. If it collapses, the gravitational corridor linked to it will destabilize. Trade routes will vanish first, then communication, then several inhabited systems may be exposed to tidal disruptions. Adrian's face tightened. How many people? Nythera did not answer immediately. That silence gave him the answer before she spoke. 14 billion. Adrian stopped breathing for a moment. Now he understood the crying, mostly, but something still did not fit. You have scientists, yes, engineers, thousands, military resources, more than you could imagine. Then why are you carrying this like you personally broke the star? Nythera's gaze dropped. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. The star did not fail naturally. Adrian looked at her. What do you mean? She touched another control. A classified recording appeared above the table. A human-shaped figure stood inside some kind of reactor chamber, surrounded by alien machinery. The image was distorted. Adrian could barely identify the uniform. Then he saw the insignia. Varethi Royal Command. Nythera spoke quietly. Someone sabotaged it. Adrian stared at the recording. Someone from inside the Empire. Yes. And you know who? Nythera's hand tightened against the table. I know who gave the order. Adrian waited. Her eyes became wet again, though she refused to look away. My brother. Adrian said nothing. Nythera continued. Prince Kaelor commanded the Hellion research fleet. He's alive. No, the answer came too quickly, too painfully. He transmitted a final message 3 hours ago. Then his ship entered the stellar core. Adrian understood. The devastating news had not merely been about an empire, it had been about family. He did this. I don't know. But you said he gave the order. I have the transmission. Transmissions can be altered. Our encryption cannot. Adrian glanced at the hologram. Every civilization says that right before someone alters their encryption. Nythera looked at him. That was almost intelligent. I'll put it in my report. She turned away, but Adrian caught another tiny smile. Then the smile faded. I spent my entire life teaching him duty, loyalty, responsibility. Maybe he learned all 3. Nythera stared at him. Adrian pointed toward the recording. If he really wanted the star destroyed, why send a final message? She remained silent. And why fly into the core afterward? Still nothing. Adrian moved closer to the projection. Maybe this isn't a confession. What else would it be? A warning. Nythera froze. Adrian looked again at the distorted figure. Play the message. I have watched it 17 times. Then 18 probably won't hurt. Her long ears lowered slightly. "You are remarkably irritating. I've been evaluated professionally." For the first time since he entered, Nythera laughed without trying to stop herself, only briefly. Then she activated the recording. Prince Kaelor appeared. Static covered half his face. His voice emerged through heavy interference. "Nythera, forgive me, I had no choice. Hellion 12 must fall before they awaken." Adrian's expression changed. Nythera went completely still. The message continued. "If the star remains active, they will find us." The recording broke into static. Then one final sentence came through. "They are already inside the Empire." The projection vanished. Neither spoke. Outside the chamber, hidden within the palace communication network, an unknown signal quietly activated. Someone else had just learned that Queen Nythera was no longer alone. Adrian watched the empty space where Prince Kaelor's message had disappeared. "They are already inside the Empire." The words seemed to remain in the chamber even after the recording ended. Nythera stood motionless. Adrian looked at her. "You knew about that sentence?" "Yes. And you still thought this was only sabotage." "I thought my brother had lost his mind. That would be convenient." She turned sharply. "Convenient? For the investigation, terrible for family gatherings." Nythera stared at him for several seconds. Then she exhaled through her nose. "You truly cannot remain serious for more than a minute." "I can." "When?" "Usually during explosions." A warning tone interrupted them. One of the symbols on the control table changed from white to amber. Nythera immediately touched it. Nothing happened. She tried again. The symbol turned red. Adrian's hand moved toward his rifle. "What is that?" "Someone attempted to access this chamber's private network." "From where?" "The palace." "That seems bad." "It is extremely bad." "Good. I was worried I was overreacting." Nythera activated a security command. The room darkened. Thin lines of light appeared across the walls as the chamber disconnected itself from the central palace system. Adrian watched streams of alien code move across the table. "You can isolate the room for 7 minutes." "Why only 7?" "Because this chamber was designed for royal privacy, not siege warfare." Humans would have added thicker doors. Humans put weapons on farming vehicles. They're useful farming vehicles. Nythera ignored him and expanded the intrusion record. A map of the palace appeared. The unauthorized signal had entered through the diplomatic communications wing, passed through 3 military servers, then vanished near the lower research levels. Adrian frowned. "That route is too complicated." "It was designed to hide the source." "No, I mean whoever did it wanted you to see how complicated it was." Nythera looked at him. "Explain." "If someone is sneaking through your house, they don't knock over furniture unless they want you looking at the furniture." Her eyes narrowed. "A diversion, maybe." The chamber suddenly shook, not violently, just enough for the holograms to flicker. Then another warning appeared. This one Adrian understood without translation. "Pressure loss." Something happened outside. Nythera moved toward the door. Adrian stepped in front of her. "No." Her long ears rose. "You are giving me orders. For the next 30 seconds, yes. I am your queen." "Technically, you're not my queen." "That is your argument." It sounded stronger in my head. A muffled impact came from the corridor, then another. Adrian raised his pulse rifle. "Stay behind me. I have commanded armies. And I have opened doors before. Tonight seems to be my specialty." Nythera touched a control beside the entrance. A small section of the wall became transparent. The corridor beyond was empty. The 4 guards were gone. Adrian's expression changed. They wouldn't abandon their post. No. A dark shape lay near the far corner, one of the guards. Adrian moved closer to the transparent panel. The alien soldier was alive. His hand twitched. "Gas." Nythera scanned the corridor. No toxins. Energy weapon. No discharge detected. The guard suddenly lifted his head. His eyes glowed pale blue. Nythera froze. "That is not normal. Glad we agree." The guard stood, then another appeared behind him, then another. All three moved strangely, as if receiving instructions a fraction of a second before their bodies obeyed. Adrian raised his weapon. "What am I looking at?" Nythera stepped closer to the glass. "Neural override. I thought that technology was illegal." "It is. That has never stopped anyone before." The guards turned simultaneously toward the chamber. Their eyes remained blue. Then they began walking toward the door. Nythera accessed the lock. "It will hold. How long?" She hesitated. Adrian looked at her. "Please don't say 7 minutes. Approximately 7 minutes. Your architects really like that number." The first guard struck the door. A heavy metallic sound filled the chamber. Another strike followed. Nythera brought up the palace security system. Nothing responded. "They severed my command access. Can you contact anyone?" "No. Can we leave another way?" She looked toward the floor. Adrian noticed. "You have another way?" "No." That was a very suspicious no. "There is an emergency passage." "Excellent. It has not been used in 300 years." "Less excellent." Another impact hit the door. A crack appeared across one of the glowing lock indicators. Nythera crossed to the far wall and placed her palm against a decorative silver panel. Nothing happened. She tried again. Still nothing. Adrian glanced over. 300 years. "Do not start. I was going to suggest maintenance." She pressed harder. The panel finally opened with a grinding noise so ugly that both of them stared at it. Adrian nodded. "Very royal." Behind it was a narrow passage descending into darkness. Nythera looked offended by her own palace. "I was told this mechanism was silent. 3 centuries ago, perhaps." The chamber door shook again. Adrian gestured toward the passage. "After you." Nythera stopped. "You first." "Why? You have the rifle." "That is disturbingly logical." He stepped into the passage. Nythera followed. The panel began closing behind them. Just before it sealed, Adrian looked back. The chamber door burst open. The controlled guards entered, but they were not alone. A tall figure in black armor walked between them. Its face was hidden. On its chest glowed a symbol Adrian had never seen before. Nythera had. She grabbed Adrian's arm. For the first time since he had entered her chamber, genuine fear appeared in her eyes. That symbol disappeared 800 years ago. Adrian lowered his voice. "What does it mean?" The passage sealed. Darkness surrounded them. Nythera answered quietly. "It belongs to the people who built the artificial stars." Adrian kept moving through the narrow passage while Nythera followed closely behind him. "The people who built the artificial stars," he repeated. "You say that as though they are supposed to be dead." "They are." "That answer is becoming very unpopular tonight." Nythera did not respond. The passage descended beneath the palace in a long spiral. Emergency lights flickered to life one after another, but several failed completely, leaving sections of darkness between them. Adrian slowed. "How far does this go?" "To the old foundation levels." "You have foundation levels under a palace that already floats above the city." "The palace was built over something older." "Of course it was." "What does that mean?" "It means nobody in the galaxy ever builds a palace over a normal basement." Nythera almost replied, but a sharp vibration ran through the wall. Both stopped. Adrian raised his rifle. The vibration came again, not footsteps. Something moving through the structure. Nythera placed 2 fingers against a wall panel. "The palace network is being rewritten. Can they control everything? If they reach the central intelligence core, yes. Doors, yes. Defense systems, yes. Those irritating cleaning drones." Nythera looked at him. "Especially those." Adrian frowned. "Then civilization truly is lost." A faint laugh escaped her before she could stop it. For a moment the fear in her face softened. Then the emergency lights turned red. A synthetic voice spoke through hidden speakers. "Royal authority rejected." Nythera froze. Adrian looked back. "Did your own palace just fire you?" "It appears so." "That is impressively efficient politics." The voice continued. "Primary command transferred." "To whom?" Adrian asked. No answer came. Nythera touched another control panel. Again the system rejected her. She stepped back. They have my genetic authorization. Could someone copy it? No. Could your brother? Her expression changed. He had secondary royal access. Adrian considered the idea. If Kaelor knew these people were coming, maybe he left them away inside. Nythera's eyes hardened. Or he betrayed us. Possible. You keep defending him. I'm not. It sounds like you are. I'm defending the possibility that dead people are terrible witnesses. That stopped her. Adrian continued more quietly. He flew into a dying artificial star after sending you a warning. Either he was guilty or he was trying to prevent something worse. Nythera turned away. My brother and I argued before he left. Adrian waited. She continued walking. He wanted Hellion 12 shut down 6 months ago. Why? He claimed the star was transmitting. To where? He did not know, and you refused. I believed he was frightened. Was he? Yes. Nythera's voice weakened, and I judged him for it. Adrian said nothing for several steps. Then he spoke. Being frightened doesn't make someone wrong. I know that now. The admission came so quietly that Adrian nearly missed it. They reached the bottom of the passage. A circular door blocked the way. Unlike the palace above, it had no visible controls, only a symbol. The same symbol Adrian had seen on the black-armored intruder. Nythera stared at it. This should not be here. That sentence is also getting very popular tonight. She approached the door. Symbols lit beneath her hand. Then a voice spoke. Not Varethi, not human. The translator in Adrian's uniform took several seconds before producing words. Royal descendant recognized. Nythera stepped back. Adrian looked at her. Descendant. The door opened. Beyond it waited an enormous underground chamber filled with machinery. Thousands of suspended rings rotated around a central sphere of white light. Adrian stared upward. This is under your palace. I did not know. Your family has very serious storage problems. Nythera ignored him. A holographic figure appeared above the central platform. It looked humanoid. Long ears. Pale skin, almost Varethi, but older somehow. Not in age, in design. Its eyes opened. Nythera whispered something in her own language. Adrian's translator gave him only one word. Creator. The hologram looked directly at her. Nythera of the royal line. She stiffened. You know me. We know every ruler produced by our blood. Adrian slowly turned toward her. Nythera looked equally shocked. Our blood. The hologram continued. The Varethi monarchy was engineered to maintain the stellar network. Nythera stepped forward. My people built those stars. No, the answer filled the chamber. We built them. The rings began rotating faster. Images appeared in the air. Artificial suns, ancient fleets, planets Adrian did not recognize. Then hundreds of long-eared humanoids entering cryogenic structures. The hologram spoke again. We entered dormancy when the war ended. Nythera's face paled. What war? The first war. Adrian folded his arms. There was a first one. The hologram turned toward him. Human. Adrian frowned. You say that like an accusation. You should not exist here. That's generally how aliens greet us. Nythera glanced at him. This is not the time. I'm coping. The hologram studied Adrian. Then the entire chamber suddenly changed. The white sphere at its center turned red. An alarm sounded. Foreign genetic signature confirmed. Adrian raised his rifle. What did I do? Nythera looked at the hologram. What is happening? The ancient intelligence ignored her. Instead, it projected a map of the galaxy. Dozens of systems began flashing. Then hundreds. Adrian watched lines spread outward from Vareth, a transmission. The machine was sending something. Stop it, Nythera ordered. The hologram did not obey. Awakening protocol initiated. Her expression changed. Awakening what? The answer came from another voice, not the hologram, a real voice behind them. Us. Adrian spun around. The black-armored figure stood inside the doorway. It removed its helmet. A woman stared back at them, human-shaped, long ears, silver eyes. Nythera stopped breathing. The stranger smiled. Hello, little queen. Adrian lifted his rifle. The woman looked at the weapon and sighed. Humans. Adrian did not lower it. I get that reaction a lot. Behind the woman, more armored figures entered. Nythera stepped beside Adrian. What do you want? The stranger's smile vanished. Your throne? Nythera's hand tightened. The woman shook her head. No. She pointed toward the red sphere. We want our stars back. The chamber trembled. Across the galaxy, ancient artificial suns began answering. One by one, systems that had remained silent for thousands of years suddenly transmitted the same signal. Nythera stared at the map. What has my brother done? The woman looked at her. Your brother. For the first time, genuine surprise appeared on the stranger's face. Then she laughed. Queen Nythera, your brother did not awaken us. She turned toward Adrian. He did. Adrian kept the rifle raised. The armored woman looked at him with an expression that suggested she had seen more impressive weapons in museums. You awakened us, she said. Adrian glanced at Nythera. I've had a busy evening. This is not funny, Nythera said. I know, that's why I'm trying. The woman stepped closer. Nythera immediately moved between them. You will explain. The stranger's long ears tilted slightly. So proud. Explain. You really are descended from the royal line. Nythera's eyes hardened. I am not interested in compliments. No, you are interested in answers. Yes. Then tell your human to lower his weapon. Adrian did not move. Nythera glanced at him. Captain, I don't like her. She does not appear devastated by that. The woman smiled. Your instincts are excellent. Thank you. That was not praise. Still taking it. Nythera exhaled sharply. Adrian. He finally lowered the rifle, though only a few centimeters. The stranger touched the side of her armor. A projection emerged above her wrist. Human genetic sequences appeared beside Varethi markers. Adrian's expression changed. What is that? You. She expanded the image. A section of human DNA glowed. Then the same sequence appeared within an ancient stellar control code. Nythera stared at the comparison. That is impossible. No, the stranger replied. It is inconvenient. Adrian stepped closer. You're saying human genetics can activate your technology? Not all humans. She looked directly at him. Certain bloodlines. Adrian laughed once. You've got the wrong soldier. I do not. I grew up in Ohio. The woman remained silent. Adrian pointed at himself. Very ancient and mysterious. Nythera almost smiled. The stranger clearly did not understand why either of them found this amusing. Humanity was not supposed to develop independently. The chamber seemed quieter after that sentence. Adrian's expression lost its humor. What does that mean? The woman turned toward the projection. Thousands of stars appeared. One small blue planet emerged at the edge of the map. Earth. Nythera stepped closer. You knew of his world. We knew of the seed colony. Adrian stared at her. Seed colony? Yes. You're saying Earth was a colony. Not exactly. That phrase keeps causing problems. The stranger continued. During the First War, we created several populations genetically capable of interacting with stellar systems. Nythera looked toward Adrian. Humanity was engineered, partially. Adrian's jaw tightened. By you? No, that answer surprised everyone. The stranger expanded the map again. Another symbol appeared, a black spiral. Nythera immediately recognized it. Her brother's message. They, she whispered. The stranger nodded. The enemy. Adrian looked between them. The people Kaelor warned about. Yes. The stranger's voice became colder. They created humans. Adrian did not respond. For several seconds he simply stared at the projection of Earth. Then he slowly lowered the rifle. That's going to make family history awkward. Nythera looked at him. Adrian, I'm fine. You do not look fine. I've looked worse. The armored woman continued. The humans were designed as living keys. Keys to what? The artificial stars. Nythera's eyes widened. Adrian looked toward the red sphere. So I walked into this chamber, and your genetic signature completed the awakening sequence. That seems like poor security. It was considered impossible. Again, that sentence really needs to leave the galaxy. Nythera turned toward the stranger. Why would your enemy create humans capable of controlling your stars? To steal them. The projection changed. Ancient vessels surrounded artificial suns. Entire systems disappeared. The First War was not fought for territory, it was fought for control of stellar architecture. Adrian watched enormous gravitational structures collapse, and you won. The stranger hesitated. Nythera noticed. You did not. We survived. That is not the same thing. No, the chamber suddenly shook. Warning lights flashed. The projection changed again. A signal was approaching, fast, very fast. The stranger's face tightened. No, Nythera looked at her. What? They received the awakening transmission. Who? The woman stared at Adrian, the ones who made him. Adrian raised the rifle again. Finally, something simple. The chamber alarms intensified. An artificial voice announced. Unknown fleet entering system boundary. Nythera activated the planetary display. Thousands of objects appeared beyond Vareth, then tens of thousands. Adrian stared at the numbers. That's not a fleet. No, the armored woman whispered. It is an invasion. Nythera turned toward her. You have ships, dormant. Wake them. We are trying. Try faster. The woman looked almost offended. Nythera stepped closer. You wanted your stars back. Congratulations. Now defend them. Adrian looked at the queen. For the first time since he had met her, there were no tears in her eyes, only command. The stranger gave a thin smile. Now you sound like your ancestors. Nythera ignored her. Captain Hale. Adrian turned. Yes, your majesty, you activated this system. Accidentally. You are going to help me control it. Still accidentally. No, that is less comforting. Nythera moved toward the central platform. The red sphere opened. A column of light surrounded her. The chamber responded to her bloodline immediately. Symbols spun around her, then stopped. Access DENIED. Nythera stared. The stranger frowned. What? The ancient intelligence spoke. Royal authority incomplete. Adrian looked toward Nythera. What does that mean? The hologram answered. Stellar command requires dual authorization. 2 genetic symbols appeared. One Varethi, one human. Nythera slowly turned toward Adrian. He stared back. No, the woman smiled. Adrian pointed at the machine. Absolutely not. Nythera stepped toward him. We have no choice. I've known you for one evening. Would you prefer 14 billion deaths? That is unfair. It is effective. Adrian sighed. Fine. He stepped into the light beside her. The system scanned them both. For several seconds nothing happened. Then the entire chamber erupted with white energy. Across the map, artificial stars changed from red to gold. Ancient warships began waking beneath moons, oceans, abandoned planets, and asteroid fields. Nythera looked toward Adrian. What did we just do? He watched thousands of dormant vessels come online. I think we found your navy. The armored woman shook her head. No. A new symbol appeared at the edge of the system. Much larger than the rest. The stranger's face turned pale. That is not our navy. The object emerged from hyperspace. It was larger than a moon, and it was transmitting a single message. Adrian's translator processed the signal, then spoke the words aloud. Return the human. Nythera looked at Adrian. Adrian stared at the enormous ship. Well, he raised his rifle. At least they said please. The translator repeated the message. Return the human or the star dies. Nythera's expression hardened. No. The stranger turned toward her. You would risk your entire system for one soldier. Nythera looked at Adrian, then at the fleet approaching her world. When she spoke, her voice was calm. No, she activated the stellar command interface. I am risking their entire fleet for him. The warning echoed through the chamber. Return the human or the star dies. No one spoke. The projection of the invading fleet continued to expand until it covered nearly half the galaxy map. Thousands of hostile vessels formed perfect geometric formations around Vareth. Their movements so synchronized they resembled a single living organism instead of countless ships. Adrian looked at the display. I missed the cleaning drone. Nythera glanced at him. That is your response. It was simpler. The armored woman folded her arms. They are waiting. For what? Adrian asked. For your surrender. Adrian looked toward Nythera. Well, I vote no. So do I, Nythera answered immediately. The stranger looked genuinely confused. You would refuse without negotiation. Nythera straightened. I spent years negotiating. And they kept proving why negotiations eventually require soldiers. Adrian smiled. That might be the most human thing you've said. The ancient intelligence interrupted them. Hostile energy accumulation detected. The enormous enemy flagship had begun drawing power from the nearby artificial star. Nythera stared at the readings. They're draining Helion-12. The armored woman shook her head. No. She enlarged the scan. They're trying to overwrite it. Adrian frowned. Can they? The hologram answered. If the human key willingly submits, yes. And unwillingly, probability decreases to less than 1%. Adrian slowly smiled. So being stubborn is finally useful. You have demonstrated remarkable experience in that field, Nythera replied. He gave her an exaggerated bow. Years of training. She almost laughed, almost. Then her expression became serious again. I have an idea. Adrian looked worried. That sentence never ends well. Nythera stepped toward the central sphere. The stars recognized two signatures. Mine and yours. Yes. What are you thinking? I cannot defeat them. I was hoping for something more optimistic. But perhaps we do not have to. She activated the stellar network. Every artificial sun appeared before them. 9 enormous stars, 8 glowing gold, 1 still unstable. Helion-12. Nythera looked toward the hologram. My ancestors created these stars to protect life. Yes. Then they can protect life again. The hologram hesitated. The Harmony Protocol has never been activated. What does it do? It links every artificial star into a unified gravitational field. Adrian blinked. That sounds expensive. It also disables every hostile vessel using stolen stellar technology. That sounds considerably better. The armored woman stepped forward. It requires both of you. Nythera nodded. We know. It also requires complete trust. Adrian looked confused. How does a machine measure trust? The hologram answered. It observes intent. Adrian sighed. Alien technology is exhausting. Nythera smiled. It certainly explains your test scores. He looked offended. You've known me for one evening, and I already know enough. For the first time that night they both laughed without forcing it. The tension broke, only for a moment. Then both stepped into the circle of light. The machine scanned them again. 2 streams of energy surrounded them. Nythera reached out her hand. Adrian looked at it. Really? Yes. This is symbolic, isn't it? Yes. You couldn't just use fingerprints. No, he took her hand. The chamber disappeared, or at least it felt that way. Suddenly both of them stood inside a field of stars. Not physically, somewhere else. A place built from light. Ancient voices echoed around them. Thousands of them, the creators, the first guardians. One voice spoke above the others. Why should the network awaken? Nythera answered first. To protect my people. Another voice. You carry fear. Yes. You carry doubt. Yes. You cried. Nythera closed her eyes. Yes. Silence followed. Then Adrian stepped forward. She cried because she refused to stop caring. The voices became quiet. He continued. I've met leaders who never cried. Images appeared around him. Worlds destroyed by pride. Cities abandoned by arrogant rulers. Soldiers left behind. Adrian looked toward the stars. The ones who think they're never allowed to feel usually stop caring about everyone else. Nythera looked at him in surprise. She didn't cry because she's weak. He smiled. She cried because 14 billion lives mattered to her. Another long silence. Then the voices spoke together. Accepted. The stars erupted into brilliant light. Back inside the chamber, every artificial sun turned white. The Harmony Protocol activated. Across the Varith system, invisible waves expanded faster than light. The invading fleet fired. Nothing happened. One by one, their weapons shut down, their engines followed, then their shields. Thousands of hostile ships drifted silently through space. The moon-sized flagship went dark, the transmission stopped. The ancient intelligence calmly announced, "Conflict concluded." The armored woman stared at the map. "They've surrendered." "No," Nythera corrected gently. "They've been disarmed." Several minutes later, palace security returned online. The neural overrides vanished. The royal guards awakened, confused but unharmed. Emergency teams secured the underground chamber. Scientists rushed inside only to stop in stunned silence as forgotten machines surrounded their queen. Among the recovered records was Prince Kaelor's complete final archive. He had never betrayed the Empire. He had discovered the enemy's plan months earlier and sacrificed himself to prevent Hellion 12 from fully awakening the invasion network. His final message had been incomplete because his ship had already entered the star. Nythera stood quietly after hearing the truth. A single tear appeared again. This time she did not hide it. Adrian stood beside her. He was trying to save everyone. Yes, he succeeded, she nodded, and I never thanked him. Adrian looked toward the stars beyond the palace window. I think he knew. Weeks later, the galaxy slowly returned to normal. The ancient creators chose not to reclaim the Empire. Instead, they shared their knowledge before leaving to restore damaged stellar networks beyond known space. The underground chamber became a place of cooperation instead of secrecy. Human engineers worked beside Varethi scientists. Arguments about mathematics became almost as common as arguments about sandwiches. The cleaning drone still disliked Adrian. Some traditions survived every galactic crisis. On Adrian's final day before returning to Earth, Nythera met him in Corridor 7, the same corridor where everything had begun. "No ceremony?" Adrian asked. "You dislike ceremonies." "I really do." She handed him a small silver insignia shaped like an artificial star, the first guardian of two worlds. Adrian looked at it. "I only knocked on a door." Nythera smiled warmly. "No." She looked down the quiet corridor. "You reminded a lonely queen that strength is not pretending you never break." She looked back at him. "Sometimes, strength is allowing someone to hear you cry." Adrian clipped the insignia onto his uniform. "Well," he smiled. "I still think pretending the ventilation system was crying was a terrible excuse." Nythera laughed openly, without hesitation, the sound echoing through the corridor. Several nearby guards looked at one another in complete disbelief. One whispered, "I've never heard Her Majesty laugh." The oldest guard quietly smiled. "I believe," he said, "the human has been promoted." Adrian looked toward him. "Does that come with better cleaning drones?" The little maintenance drone immediately bumped into his boot. Nythera laughed even harder. For the first time in many years, the palace no longer sounded lonely.